Professor Vex'thara adjusted her 6 eyes nervously as she gazed across the lecture hall filled with the galaxy's most promising xenobiology students. Today's lesson was supposed to be straightforward: apex predator analysis and threat assessment. What could possibly go wrong? Class, she began, her mandibles clicking with authority. Today we examine the Garathian Death Stalker, arguably the most terrifying predator in known space. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a monstrous creature that looked like someone had crossed a saber-toothed tiger with a mechanical nightmare and given it anger management issues. Standing 12 feet tall with razor-sharp claws that could slice through starship hull plating, the beast's 6 yellow eyes glowed with pure malevolence. Every student in the auditorium, Zephyrians, Maltokians, Centauri delegates, even the usually fearless Chronax warriors, instinctively leaned back in their seats. Well, every student except one. Marcus Thompson, the lone human exchange student, leaned forward with what could only be described as enthusiastic interest. His blue eyes sparkled with something that made Professor Vex'thara's chidness skin crawl. The Death Stalker, she continued, trying to ignore the human's unsettling grin, possesses bite strength capable of crushing titanium, speed that defies physics, and intelligence rivaling most sentient species. Their roar alone has been known to cause cardiac arrest in smaller beings. A Zephyrian student raised a trembling tentacle. Professor, how loud exactly is this roar? 170 decibels at close range. For reference, anything above 120 can cause permanent hearing damage to most species. She paused dramatically. The Death Stalker's roar has literally frightened enemies to death. Marcus raised his hand, still grinning. Professor, do you have an audio recording of this roar? Every head in the class turned toward him. The Maltokian sitting next to him scooted his chair away so fast it nearly tipped over. Well, yes, Professor Vex'thara replied hesitantly, but I hardly think. Oh, come on, Marcus interrupted with a laugh that somehow managed to sound both innocent and terrifying. We're all adults here. What's the worst that could happen? Famous last words, the professor thought grimly. But academic curiosity won out over common sense. After all, the audio system was equipped with volume limiters. Surely it would be safe enough. Very well. Brace yourselves, students. She activated the recording. The sound that erupted from the speakers was pure, concentrated nightmare fuel. It started as a low rumble that seemed to shake the very foundations of the building, then escalated into a bone-chilling shriek that spoke directly to every prey instinct hardwired into galactic DNA. It was the sound of death itself gargling with broken glass while riding a meteor through a tornado. The effect was immediate and predictable. Zephyrian students collapsed in their seats, tentacles wrapped protectively around their heads. The Maltokians first stood on end as they dove under desks. Chronax warriors, beings who had fought in 3 galactic wars, whimpered like frightened cubs. Even Professor Vex'thara found herself backing toward the emergency exit, all 6 eyes wide with primal terror. The roar continued for what felt like an eternity but was probably only 15 seconds. When it finally ended, the silence was deafening. Students remained frozen in various states of panic, some hyperventilating, others checking for signs of permanent psychological damage. Then, cutting through the traumatic silence like a laser through butter, came the sound of slow, deliberate clapping. Every eye in the room turned to Marcus Thompson, who was not only unaffected by the terrifying display but was actually applauding with genuine appreciation. A huge smile spread across his face. Now that, he said with obvious delight, was awesome. Professor, could you play it again? Maybe a little louder this time? The collective gasp from the class was audible. A Zephyrian student fainted outright. The Chronax warrior in the front row made a sound that might have been sobbing. Professor Vex'thara stared at the human in complete bewilderment. Mr. Thompson, she managed to croak, Are you feeling all right? Perhaps you need medical attention? Possible hearing loss? Shock? Complete mental breakdown? Nah, I'm great, Marcus replied cheerfully. That was genuinely impressive. Reminds me of my Uncle Jerry's motorcycle back home, except with more soul-crushing existential dread. Good stuff. A brave Maltokian student raised a shaking paw. How are you not terrified right now? Marcus shrugged casually, as if the question itself was amusing. Oh, don't get me wrong, that thing sounds absolutely deadly. But you know what we have back on Earth that makes similar noises? The class leaned in despite their terror, morbid curiosity overcoming survival instincts. Lions, Marcus said simply. Tigers. Bears. Wolves during mating season. My neighbor's leaf blower at 6 in the morning. Really, the Death Stalker just sounds like it needs a good throat lozenge and maybe some anger counseling. The professor's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. Mr. Thompson, I don't think you fully comprehend the lethality of— Oh, I get it, Marcus interrupted, waving a hand dismissively. Big, scary, kills things dead. Very impressive. But here's the thing, Professor, he stood up, and somehow his casual posture was more unsettling than the Deathstalker's roar had been. Where I come from, we call that Tuesday. The classroom remained frozen in stunned silence after Marcus's casual declaration. Professor Vex'thara's 6 eyes blinked in a sequence that would have been comical under different circumstances. Tuesday, squeaked a Zephyrian student from under his desk. Well, maybe Wednesday, Marcus amended thoughtfully, scratching his chin. Depends on whether it's hunting season back home. The Maltokian who had scooted away earlier raised a trembling paw. Hunting season? You mean, you hunt these creatures? Marcus burst into laughter, a sound that, after the Deathstalker's roar, seemed almost as unsettling to the alien students. Oh no, no, no. We don't have Deathstalkers on Earth. We have something much worse. The collective intake of breath was audible. Professor Vex'thara felt her chitinous plates shifting nervously. Worse? Mr. Thompson, according to our Galactic Threat Assessment database, the Garathian Deathstalker ranks as Class Omega, the highest possible danger rating. Yeah, well, Marcus shrugged, your database clearly hasn't met a honey badger. A honey badger? The professor's translator struggled with the unfamiliar term. Small mammal. About 3 feet long. Weighs maybe 30 pounds soaking wet. Marcus gestured casually with his hands. Absolutely refuses to die, fights everything bigger than itself, and has exactly zero care about your feelings or your threat assessments. A Chronax warrior, a being whose species had conquered 7 star systems, leaned forward hesitantly. Surely you exaggerate for comedic effect? Do I look like I'm joking? Marcus asked, and his suddenly serious expression made everyone deeply uncomfortable. Honey badgers fight lions for fun. They eat cobras like spaghetti. One got stuck in a leopard's throat and choked it to death from the inside. They're basically nature's middle finger with claws. Professor Vex'thara's mandibles clicked frantically. But that's just one creature, surely. Oh, Professor, Marcus interrupted, his grin returning with disturbing intensity, we're just getting started. Ever heard of an octopus? Cephalopod mollusk, fairly common across the galaxy, she replied, relieved to be on familiar ground. Harmless filter feeders, mostly. Not on Earth. Marcus's eyes gleamed. Our octopi are escape artists with 8 arms, 3 hearts, and the problem-solving skills of a criminal mastermind. They open jars from the inside, sneak out of their tanks at night to eat other animals, then sneak back before morning. One learned to turn off the lights in its lab just to mess with the researchers. The class stared in horrified fascination. Then there are the dolphins, Marcus continued cheerfully. Everyone thinks they're cute and friendly. Sure, they're intelligent, social, and playful. They're also sociopathic bullies who torture other animals for entertainment and have been known to commit what can only be described as marine war crimes. A Zephyrian student tentacle signed something that the translator rendered as profanity. Should I mention the geese? Marcus mused aloud. No wings of death, no titanium-crushing bite, just pure, concentrated hatred in a feathered package. They've shut down airports, terrorized entire neighborhoods, and won battles against trained military personnel. I once saw a goose chase a motorcycle down a highway. Professor Vex'thara was beginning to suspect this human might be suffering from some sort of species-wide delusion. Mr. Thompson, these stories seem rather implausible? Marcus laughed. Professor, you want to know why I wasn't scared of your Deathstalker recording? Because I've heard scarier sounds coming from my sister's bedroom when she's playing her music. Because I've walked past construction sites, stood next to jet engines, and lived through my father's attempts at karaoke. He stood up again, and this time his casual confidence filled the room like a tangible presence. You want to know what makes humans different? We don't just survive alongside apex predators, we are the apex predators. We didn't evolve with claws or fangs or armored hide. We evolved with something much more dangerous, the absolute refusal to know when we're beaten. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop in vacuum space. We looked at creatures that could kill us in dozens of ways, and instead of running, we thought, hey, I bet that would taste good with barbecue sauce. We turned wolves into lapdogs. We made horses carry us around for fun. We took sharks, the ocean's perfect killing machines, and put them in glass boxes for children to gawk at. Marcus's voice grew softer, which somehow made it more terrifying. So when I hear your Deathstalkers roar, Professor, I don't hear the sound of certain doom. I hear the sound of Friday night entertainment. Because somewhere back home, there's definitely a human who would hear that recording and think, challenge accepted. Professor Vex'thara looked around at her traumatized students, then back at the grinning human. Class dismissed, she whispered. Forever. As students fled the auditorium in various states of existential crisis, Marcus called out cheerfully, same time next week, Professor? I'd love to tell you about Australian wildlife. The sound of Professor Vex'thara's terrified chittering could be heard 3 corridors away.